So, yeah. So my name is Rachel Hershey. I'm a junior civil engineering major. And as for where I'm from, my dad is American and my mom is Swiss, but I grew up in Central Asia for most of my life in the countries of Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan.
So tell me a little bit about what worship music was like in the cultures you grew up in and how it compares to American worship.
Yeah, so people in Central Asia have a lot of their own worship music that they write in kind of their ethnic style and using their heart languages. There are some worship songs that they'll sing that are translated into Russian, like worship songs that we would sing here in the US, maybe a little older songs. So they get to worship that way, but then also in their own languages, which is really neat.
Okay, cool. And then are there other kinds of music that you like to listen to, that genres that are from your culture that you don't normally find as regular or as popular here?
Yeah, so I kind of listen to a little bit of everything. When I'm feeling really nostalgic, sometimes I'll pull up some traditional Tajik music. So their music is very rhythmic and it has a lot of instruments that we wouldn't find here in the West. So sometimes when I'm missing home, I'll listen to some of that music and kind of bring that memory back. But usually I'll listen to maybe kind of indie music or Christian worship music, things like that.
So what were some of the main difficulties or like things that you encountered when you first came to Cedarville and American culture?
So moving to the States was a big culture shock for me. I had grown up in countries that were very poor, and the religious spirit was very different there than it is here. So there was a lot of changes that I encountered when I came to the US. I think the biggest thing that was difficult for me was relating to people on a one-on-one basis and just making friends, because my whole life prior to coming to the US was in a setting that most people had no framework for. They had never heard of the countries that I grew up in, didn't know much about what it was like to live in a place other than the US. So it was very difficult for me to connect with people because there seemed to be so many barriers between my lifestyle and theirs. So that was something that I'm still learning, how to adapt to American culture and how to connect to people here. I think a big change in my mindset has been to try to find similarities between me and the people that I'm relating to, rather than viewing my childhood as something that separates us. But so like for instance, if I want to share a story about my childhood, just sharing it in a way that intrigues the other person and maybe feeds their desire to learn more about the world or to learn more about another culture, rather than as something that tells them I'm different than you and you can't understand me. Yeah.
So what's been one of your favorite parts about being at Cedarville then, as one of those changes that you've enjoyed?
The community here is really great, and there's a lot of other MKs, missionary kids, and international students at Cedarville that I've been able to connect with and be able to relate with people and know that they understand where I'm coming from without having to try to explain everything to them. But also for those of my friends who have lived in the US their whole life, it's been really exciting to not only get to share my experience about living overseas with them, but also getting to hear from them about what it was like to grow up in the States, because that's something that's foreign to me, and I've loved just getting to know them and their stories. So Cedarville has a great environment to be able to do that.
Right. So how did you hear about Cedarville, and then what was your decision behind, deciding to come here?
Yeah, so I had plans to go to college that fell through about a month before I graduated from high school. And then I was left with nothing, and I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to go to college. Who needs a degree anyway? But a couple of people were really encouraging me to just apply anywhere, because I had to get a degree and study and use the gifts that God's given me. So Cedarville was one of the few schools that still had applications open, so I just found them on the College Search website. Had never heard of them before, never visited until I showed up my freshman semester, but it's been a great place, and Like from the first couple days that I came on campus at the beginning of that semester, there was so much confirmation from the Lord, like, this is where you're supposed to be. Yeah.
So what are some parts of your culture that you miss while being at Cedarville currently now?
I really miss the food. Just the fruit and the different spices they use. And I miss hearing the language as well. So getting to speak German or getting to hear Russian or Uzbek or Tajik is something that I really look forward to, but I don't hear on a day-to-day basis when I'm here. Yeah.